I get it standing in the garage with a piece of metal that just won't sit flat, wondering whether splurging on a big boy shop press is worth the risk of buying the wrong one. I've talked to a few friends who've tried to jury-rig a bench vise for projects that need a little more muscle, and they ended up with a half-bent frame and a lot of frustration. That hesitation is real, especially when you're looking at a $4,000+ price tag and wondering if the extra tonnage will actually translate into smoother, faster work on your own bench. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you're in the market for a press, the first thing you have to sort out is what kind of work you're really doing. If you're a hobbyist who occasionally needs to bend a few 1/4-inch steel bars for a custom bike frame, a small hydraulic press or a sturdy hand press will probably cover you. But if you're running a small fabrication shop, a metal art studio, or you've started taking on jobs that require consistent, repeatable force-think stamping logos into sheet metal, forming automotive brackets, or pulling deep-drawn parts, say, full-size frame like the Baileigh 100-ton pneumatic shop press, makes a lot more sense. So who should actually consider dropping this machine into their shop? The sweet spot is anyone who needs a reliable, high-force solution that can handle large workpieces without constantly readjusting the setup. The 31-inch working width gives you room for big plates or long bars, which means you can press a full-size door hinge or a length of tubing in one go instead of breaking it up into smaller sections. The 11.8-inch stroke, controlled with a foot pedal, lets you apply pressure smoothly, which is a game-changer when you're trying to avoid springback on thin-gauge material. If you're already using pneumatic tools like an air hammer or a spray gun, the press fits right into that same air supply, keeping your shop's power layout tidy. On the flip side, if you're just looking for a one-off solution for occasional DIY projects, the investment might feel a little overkill. The unit weighs well over 1,000 pounds, and while the welded steel frame is designed to stay rigid under load, you'll still need a solid concrete slab or a reinforced workbench to mount it safely. That's a commitment not every hobbyist is ready to make, both in terms of space and the upfront cost of preparing a proper foundation. Now, let's get into how this press actually behaves once it's set up. The hydraulic cylinder is a 6.5-inch unit that slides left and right, which is something you don't see on many lower-priced models. In practice, that lateral movement means you can line up a part that isn't perfectly centered and still get even pressure across the whole piece. I've seen a friend use it for making off-center cuts on a sheet of stainless steel, something that would have been a nightmare on a fixed-axis press because the part would tilt as the ram came down. The hand-operated lever adds a layer of precision when you need to inch the ram in slowly, like when you're aligning a delicate component before a final squeeze. One of the hidden trade-offs with a pneumatic system is that you're at the mercy of your shop's air quality. If your compressor is pushing moisture or oil into the line, that can end up in the hydraulic fluid and affect performance over time. The Baileigh press does come with industrial-grade components that are built to handle the typical moisture load, but it's still a good habit to install a proper air dryer or filter if you haven't already. Ignoring that can lead to the ram feeling a bit sticky after a few months of heavy use. The inclusion of a set of blocks is a nice practical touch. Those little metal wedges give you a quick way to cradle round or oddly shaped pieces without having to fabricate your own fixtures. I've watched a metal artist use them to press a series of copper discs into a decorative pattern, and the result was a uniform impression every time, something that would have been tricky with a bench vise. A point worth mentioning is the foot pedal control. It's intuitive once you get the feel for it, but there's a learning curve. If you're used to pulling a lever with your hand, you'll need to coordinate your foot movement with the visual cue of the ram's descent. In my experience, the first few presses feel a bit like driving a manual car. You're constantly adjusting the clutch, in this case, the pedal, to avoid jerking the material. After a handful of runs, though, you develop a rhythm, and the speed at which you can complete a batch of parts improves dramatically. Let's talk about value beyond the headline numbers. The 100-ton rating is more than enough for most small to medium fabrication tasks, but the real benefit comes from the consistency it offers. When you're producing a run of 20 stamped brackets,